I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. So, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Sir Fazril. I'm very thankful for you to be here on my presentation. And without further ado, let me start. So, I'm Nur Fatini Amal. Today, I would like to present on my FYP project, which is Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment in Offshore Platform. For your information, I have conducted this project for a year with Integrated Process Solutions, known as IPS Remember HUD. And this project is actually a real case basis where I studied on the effectiveness and the analysis of risk assessment for hazard identification. So without further ado, let's start. For my introduction, in this project is that to identify strategies to eliminate hazards and to prevent injuries of and illness of the risks and hazards of the workers. Hazard approach is widely regarded as one of the most reliable methods in identifying problems, such as possible dangers and operational difficulties. It is also a qualitative technique to identify potential hazards such as people, environment, assets, and reputation that might give effect on that. And lastly, a hazard holds a big or significant advantage in providing crucial information when evaluating HSE risks and hazards as early as feasible in the development or project lifecycle. So moving on to my problem statement, is that traumatic crash injuries, slips and falls, explosions are a few of the top hazards that occur on oil rigs such as Dayang Topaz, as we know, collided with the Barrambi oil platform recently in October 2020, which results in fatalities. So fire or explosion resulting from the presence of flammable liquids and gases which emits toxic chemicals during operation may give an additional risk of burns, cancer, or system corrosion to the operation and also to the workers. So the objectives of these studies is that to identify major accident hazards that may pose a serious and immediate threat to HSE, featuring flammable releases, toxic releases, and also non-process incident. Next, it is also to determine the potential consequences of the hazards and evaluate the level of risk associated by combining of the likelihood of a hazard occurring with its severity. And lastly, to recommend appropriate additional hazard controls or barriers to propose mitigation or safeguards to reduce the risk or to improve the risk. So, in this study, the scope for this project is that helideck and main deck were chosen as they are the highest deck and most exposed to the environmental hazards such as weather and high wind. So, main deck is mainly equipped with equipment that was run for operational. So, they are very active for maintenance activities when uh, for maintenance activities and human intervention starts in this operational. While for helideck is based on a situational basis, which is more to transportation or logistics, whether for workers and also for the equipments as well. So as you can see, there are two figures I've attached in this poster, which is top view and side view. So on the top view, you can see the design equipment layout for the main deck and also the heli deck, which is they are not attached, but they are located. Heli deck is located slightly higher from main deck. While the side view, we can see that this is the structure of the offshore platform. Moving on to the methodologies that I have conducted or that have been used for this hazard risk assessment is that I have three phases, which is before, during, and after for hazard risk assessment. So Let's see on the workflow before executing hazard risk assessment is that we have to select team members, which is very experienced people, and this workshop is being led by a facilitator and a scriber to document all the discussions, and also experienced team members coming from the clients, the subcons, and engineers such as safety engineers, operational engineers, and project managers, anyone who involves in the projects basically. And then supporting documentation is needed, and this is where we need to choose either we want to use ISO documents or PTG, which is known as Petronas Technical Guidelines document. The basis will be the location of the project itself. And next we will have to go through prelim risk assessment before the real workshop starts. Only then the hazard workshop session starts. So during hazard or during workshop hazard risk assessment is conducted, we will identify drawing and notes, and then we will list out all the guide words from the documents as we are using here is from Petronas technical guidelines. And then we will select a note, and then the operation engineer or the safety engineer will explain more on the operations, on the hazards involved. And then we will identify hazards relating to the activities. um, Later, we will risk rank the hazards based on their severity and their likelihood to happen. And then when most of the time when we have ranked the hazards, we will come out with risk reduction measures where proper mitigation and safeguards will be proposed during the workshop. And then all the data will be documented, and after has been conducted, the data or the discussion during the workshop will be documented and compiled. And then we will have risk review, which we will have to get approval from the leader or the client itself for this project. And then for risk closeout is that the documentation will be kept close within or during throughout the project for future references. So, as my results and discussion in this study is that for main deck and heli deck, it involves only 3 categories out of 5 categories. So the 3 categories are environmental hazard, facility hazards, and health hazards. So as you can see here, this is the tabulated data from the risk assessment studies. So let's say this is one of the examples, and let's say for category 1, I will list out all the hazards involved, and then I will list out all the causes, and the consequences will be the hazards will be ranked based on the risk or risk matrix, which is based on their severity and also the likelihood. So they will produce a risk level based on the risk rating. So based on the risk level, we will see on the colors or the levels of the how severity it is. Let's say the red one is very high, so the risk is not tolerable, which mitigate which we must mitigate the risk, and we have to propose the safeguards. As for the high, the risk is tolerable. However, proper mitigation and safeguard are needed throughout the process. As for medium and low level of risk, it does not necessary to have mitigation or proper safeguards. However, um, if we have recommendation, it is better for the workshop itself because this risk is tolerable. So throughout these results, I have identified 114 hazards in total. And as you can see, the pie chart here, uh, 41% contributes in very high hazards, very high risk level. And then followed by 27% of medium of very high risk, and then the remainder will be 14 and 80%, which the hazards estimated to cause no harm as it is not related to the performed deck equipment layout, which no further consideration or mitigation needed. Lastly, for my conclusion, all the hazards were assessed by using Petronas Technical Guidelines, which is PTG 1671.02 section. So all risks identified were ranked by using risk metrics, and proper risk reduction take place. So the common categories of effects are death, injury, evacuation of people, property loss, and environmental damage. Main categories of this study um, of the risk assessment is significance hazard are fire, explosion, and toxic discharge. So helideck is mainly involved with only one category, which is environmental hazard. Meanwhile, main deck involves about two categories, which is facility hazards and also health hazards. Risk evaluation shows that main deck has a higher risk than helideck, which is likely to cause severe impact. The factors contributing to the hazards has been explained, which main deck are due to continuous operation of equipment and unit operations, while helideck is on the situational basis, which is for the logistics mainly. The safeguard proposed in this study, such as vessel entry procedure, permit to work, and navigation aids to alert shipping, and others. So my recommendations for further study or further research is that to improve the risk assessment by couple it with other safety techniques or assessments such as FMEA, HAZOP, and fault tree analysis. Next is to enhance the features of the safety technical process by using simulations such as computational fluid dynamics CFD, which the modeling involves fluid flow using computational problem solving. And lastly, to further analyze by using human factor engineering HFE department, which concerns more with the design of equipment that take account on human intervention based on their capabilities and limitation. This is more to ergonomics scope. So my references in this poster mainly consists of three, which is the first one, the PTG from Petronas on the hazard identification study guidelines. And then the second one from Spouch, he published an article on a guide to quantitative risk assessment in offshore installations. And lastly, which is well related, or I would say history matching for this study, which is from Hassan and Habu Hussein on their published article, which is risk-based asset integrity management for offshore floating facilities in Malaysia. I think that is all from my presentation today, so Fazril. Looking forward for my Q&A session on Friday. So thank you.